So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Maria Ohisalo. Thank you for the invitation here, and thank you for all the listeners and participators here. Thank you for organizing this important event. It is really an honor to be here. I'm, in fact, a member of parliament right now and a former Minister of the Interior and also Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. And I was actually at the government when Finland's NATO membership came into effect. And I'm going to look back at the process a bit of Finland becoming a NATO member, as well as discuss the current and future implications of Finland's membership in the alliance. Throughout this speech, I will be making three main arguments. As we all know, our current president, Alexander Stubb, always makes the three arguments. First of all, Finland's NATO membership is a response to altered geopolitical and security landscape in Northern Europe, as well as altering our strategic position in relation to Russia and the West. But being a NATO member has not altered our core values as a country, and we have the responsibility to define our relationship with the alliance and the priorities of our membership. Secondly, emerging unconventional threats have expanded the security agenda of NATO. The importance of traditional military performance has not decreased, obviously on the contrary, but alongside it has emerged the need to emphasize, for example, the impact of civil preparedness and environmental themes on security as a whole. And thirdly, Finland has a lot to offer to NATO as a member, specifically regarding the comprehensive security model and the effects of climate and environmental issues on security. It would be wise to invest in contributing to the strategic planning of the alliance in these areas of our core expertise. So let's look a bit more deeply into these themes and first discuss how NATO membership affects our geopolitical position. We have been a NATO member for about a year now, and what has actually changed? Both a little and at the same time a lot. Practically speaking, our NATO membership may not seem to entail a dramatic change to our military policy and planning. Despite our previous policy of formal military non-alignment, we have in practice been a close partner to the alliance for years, and thus Finland is NATO compatible politically, economically, and militarily. After Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014, we actually signed a host nation support agreements with the alliance and obtained enhanced opportunity partner status at the Wales summit in September of that year. So we have been a close partner of NATO for a long time and have done a lot of cooperation with the alliance even before becoming its member. However, in principle, the change is significant. The Russian invasion of Ukraine upset the rules-based international order and international law, which has caused European states to reconsider their security politics. In the past, we have not been as clearly militarily allied, and therefore Finland's and now Sweden's entry into NATO represents a significant alteration of the geopolitical landscape of Northern Europe. Finland is now responding Russia's unjust and unprovoked aggression in Europe by strengthening its own security, part of the defense alliance. And as Finland shares a 1,300-kilometer border with Russia, this means that NATO now has a strong presence on Russia's northwestern border. Now, as a NATO member, we are not only better protected from Russia, we also have the opportunities to contribute to developing the alliance in the direction that we want to. The main reason for Finland to join NATO was the acute security threat to Europe posed by Russia, and for example, NATO's security guarantees, and the nuclear umbrella were thus understandably heavily featured in the parliamentary debates. And in this regard, Finland can look forward to constructive membership in the strategic alliance, including in decisions of NATO's nuclear policy. We can do this without changing our stance on advancing nuclear disarmament and a nuclear weapons-free world. I want to state this. We can even do this without seeking to have nuclear weapons on Finnish soil and leave our legislation unchanged in these respects. But NATO's role extends beyond the traditional narrow concept of security, and this should also be taken into account in Finland's NATO policy. It has been observed that, for instance, climate change has effects on the security and defense planning of states, and that hybrid threats require coordination between the armed forces and other branches of government, as well as civil society and also business life. Namely, I state that hard security cannot be built in a void. And that is why civil preparedness and new types of threats are important factors to consider in NATO's strategic planning. We have a lot to give to NATO in regards to our comprehensive security approach and expertise in climate and environmental security. So, what is this concept of comprehensive security? How many of us do know the concept? To put it simply, it is a model of cross-sectoral security cooperation and coordination. Because our security requires not only defense capability, but also internal security, security of energy and food supply, as well as the mental resilience of the population. This model aims to safeguard the vital functions of society through the cooperative efforts of authorities, the private sector, organizations, and citizens, taking everybody along. Comprehensive security heavily relies on foresight and preparedness, which are crucial for the continuity of critical societal functions in times of crisis, as well as in normal times. NATO's strategic concept, updated in the summer 2022, emphasizes the importance of resilience, emphasizing the alliance's preparedness against strategic shocks. All in all, in terms of comprehensive security, we have something to offer to our new allies. Our most important message, I think, should be the importance of broad social cooperation and societal cohesion as guarantors of safety. And during my time as Minister of the Interior, Finland's second internal security report was completed. The report gained quite a lot of criticism, but I think it still has a place. The report actually emphasizes that exclusion, inequality, and accumulating disadvantage are still the biggest threats to Finland's internal security. They increase the polarization of society, internal tensions, and can therefore be used to damage the society. Instead, a high sense of security in all population groups and trust in the authorities and fellow human beings protect our society also from new and unconventional security threats. To summarize this, hard security cannot be built alone. Therefore, there is a need for a comprehensive approach to security that takes into account civil preparedness, social cohesion, and cross-sectoral security cooperation. And my second argument here is that in recent years, climate and environmental issues have become an increasingly central part of the broad concept of security. This is another key theme where we would have both to give and to learn from other NATO countries. The climate and environmental crises affect the security of states in many different ways. Climate change causes complications for freshwater management and water scarcity, as well as health issues, biodiversity loss, and demographic challenges. Other consequences like famine, drought, and environmental degradation lead to loss of land and livelihood. All this contributes to increasing instability across the globe. NATO's strategic concept highlights climate change as a defining challenge of our time, with a profound impact on allied security. It states that NATO should become the leading international organization when it comes to understanding and adapting to the impact of climate change on security. For Finland, climate security could be a relevant topic through which to contribute to the agenda of the alliance, as it is a significant theme in our foreign policy, or at least I can say it has been a significant topic in the previous government's period. On the other hand, by neglecting climate security altogether in our NATO policy planning, Finland would actually risk missing an opportunity to contribute to the strategic planning of the alliance in a field of emerging importance. This is not to say that climate change should in any way undermine questions of military and defense on the security policy agenda. The Russian attack on Ukraine underlines that traditional defense capability remains as necessary to maintain as ever. But the role of climate and environment in security thinking is growing all the time. And they play a crucial role also in traditional warfare. As we have seen and continue to see in Ukraine, ruining the environment can crucially damage the state, in addition to the loss of biodiversity being a loss in itself. Russia's deliberate targeting of industrial and energy infrastructure has caused severe damage to the environment in Ukraine. For example, in early June last year, the Kakhova dam under Russian occupation was damaged, causing flooding and triggering warnings of an ecological disaster in the area. The Ukrainian government, international observers, and journalists have described this damage as ecocide. The Ukrainian government is investigating more than 200 war crimes against the environment and 15 incidents of ecocide at the moment. It should be crystal clear that repairing the environmental damage caused by the war is a key part of Ukraine's reconstruction, and Russia must be held accountable for the large-scale natural destruction it has caused in Ukraine. Preventing natural destruction is listed actually as a separate point in Ukrainian President Zelensky's 10-point peace plan. Actually, Member of Parliament, Vice President of the European Parliament, Heidi Hautala, participated in the work of the International Environmental Working Group convened by Ukrainian President Zelensky which has just submitted a report on recommendations to Ukraine and the international community. Here it would be important for NATO and the EU and Finland to act actively in support of Ukraine. I myself have demanded stronger measures from the government to prevent and condemn Russian ecocide in Ukraine. In fact, as a minister, I also signed a memorandum of understanding with Ukraine on this topic, and we started to support Ukraine also on this field. And this has been something we have been asking for the previous government to also continue to do. So, as I've already said, I think we should invest in contributing to the strategic planning of the alliance with regards to the Finnish comprehensive security approach that takes into account especially climate and environmental aspects of security. And it is important to note that NATO membership would provide an opportunity for Finnish comprehensive security actors to develop their climate and environmental security capabilities in practice in cooperation with NATO and other allies. And thank you for the opportunity to be able to be here.
So what we're going to do is have a couple questions for Maria. So I don't know if there's any questions that would come from the live audience, and then we're monitoring as well on the chat. I have a couple questions myself, but don't be shy and raise your hand if you have a question. So the question that I would like to pose, well, I have two questions, and I'll just put them both forward, and then you can address them in however you think is best. But the first is how, with the ongoing conflict, and we know that increasing security activities have a very heavy carbon footprint. Twofold, how does Finland stay with that original, the carbon neutral by 2035 for Finland? And then how, regarding NATO, what type of process would hold military activities accountable for contributing to this comprehensive security vision? And I'm just going to go ahead and put my second question, and then you'll have those, and then we'll keep looking to see if there's an audience question. The second question has to do with how voters have maybe turned a bit away from the Green Party, given the increasing movement to defense, security, and we've seen across Europe that Green parties, including in Finland, haven't been faring as well. Would you be able to comment on overall what your perspective is on what measures the Green Party could take, or how you see the future of the Green Party unfolding, maybe coming into the EU parliamentary elections? Those are my two questions. So I'm going to turn over the floor to you, and then we'll wait and see if we get any hands from the live audience as you answer the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. The questions are definitely not easy to answer, but I would start with stating the obvious, that we need to stop the war happening in Europe. That is what we have to do, and we have to support Ukraine as long as it takes. And maybe the questions come together here. What has happened in Germany, for example, the German Greens have changed their position or also quite heavily. We did it also in Finland. If we say that we had the traffic lights, we had yellow light for NATO membership as Green Party in Finland, and then we switched it into a green light. It was a big change, but we had a long debate inside the party with relevant actors, quite a lot of hearings and all of this. But I think the Greens have actually been a strong voice in saying that we cannot leave Ukraine by themselves, that we need to also arm them, but we also need to take into consideration the other aspects of the war crimes. As I mentioned, for example, the ecocide element, which is stated in President Zelensky's peace plan. And this was something where I was actually, as I mentioned, I was active, and we signed the memorandum of understanding together with Ukrainians, and Finland has been hopefully continuing the support on that field too. So at the same time to arm Ukraine, but also have the humanitarian aspect to help the people fleeing the country as much as we can. 60,000 people have already come, or probably even more, and I think even more can come, and we can help and we should help. What comes to the upcoming EU elections, it is true that the Green parties have been probably not making it that well during the couple of past years as people's, I think, when you're influenced by the war close to you, you have the COVID-19, you have a huge inflation, you have the energy crisis, people's mindsets are not focusing on environmental topics, not on climate change. They are on your well-being, your family's well-being, health, and so on. And it's totally understandable. I totally get it. But I think it's our challenge to also wake up people to see that there can be other topics, that when we focus on security, security is not only the hard security, as I mentioned here, it is a lot of other topics. It is encompassing, taking into account all of the other aspects, because it is also actually a huge security political questions that how do we get rid of fossil fuels? Are we going to be dependent on the fossil dictators, if I may say, or will we be pushing forward for renewables and other sources of energy? How independent are we actually going to be on the energy side? And for example, what comes to agriculture sector, fertilizers, are we going to be dependent on those from Russia, for example? No, we need to get ourselves more independent. And also what comes to China, we need to be speaking about the strategic autonomy when it comes to technological issues and so on.
Do we have time for one audience question? Okay, so we have one audience question.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to ask, you mentioned that the Russian Federation needs to be held accountable for the war in Ukraine. How do you see that occurring?
I think they should be held accountable for everything that is happening there. They are brutally attacked Ukraine. I think Ukraine right now is fighting the war of all of us in Europe. Actually, in the Western world, they are fighting for liberal values, they are fighting for democracy, sovereignty, all of these issues, and that is also why we need to support them as long as it takes. And it is not only the genocide, as I mentioned, it's also the ecocide side of the war, and that is why I think we should be talking about the wide scale of destruction they are causing, because who can move back to the country if your soil, water, air quality is destroyed? Nobody. Who can start the rebuilding of the society and the country if that is all ruined? Ukraine right now is actually one of the most mined countries in the world. It is going to take years and years to even just to clean that away. And as we know, Ukraine has a huge role in agriculture and food production also regarding to not only European countries, but also, for example, African countries. So we need to do everything we can to support Ukraine.
Thank you, Maria. I know that you're off to another engagement. So let's, from the audience, can we please thank Maria for such a wonderful overview, especially of the comprehensive security. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again. And yes,